Thank you. We are going to begin the conference of today. Hi, from Peru, Juan. Thank you so much for seeing us. Okay, let's begin this 6th day in our event. So the conference title is Solid Waste Management in River Systems. It's from the main theme, Urban Water Conservation and Hydraulic Structures Engineer. The description of the following conference is: the major contributor of solid waste in the oceans are rivers. Illegal dumping leads to people dumping on wetlands, and especially in South Africa, they dump at adjacent rivers during heavy rain and flooding, or during the windy season. The solid waste is easily carried into the river system and thus ending in the oceans. This the treatment human health and river and the ocean ecosystems. The main objective of my project is to implement and to a certain extent design a solid waste monitoring system for rivers and wetlands, and a solid waste capturing system for rivers and draining system in the city. These systems must not harm the freshwater ecosystems while being very effective in removing solid waste. Okay, the speaker from today is the engineer Njabulo Magagula. He is candidate scientist in South African Council for Natural Scientific Profession and Natural Science Education Community Service Learning in the University of the Free State. He is Bachelor in Environment Management, honors in Environment Management. He has 2 years in agricultural management and 4 years in environment management of waste resource management. Okay, he currently holds the position of project secretary and technical advisor of YEP program, establishing the maintaining contact with the various internal and external partners and stakeholders. Please, guys, bueno, chicos, de una calurosa bienvenida to the engineer from today. How are you, esteemed engineer?
Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you, Sergio? And everyone else watching and tuned in.
We're good, engineer. So thank you so much. It's a pleasure to finally meet you through this media. So the conference is all yours. Please, team, can you share the presentation from today? Production team.
The pleasure's all mine.
Thank you, engineer. So we are here to listen to you. Engineer, can you watch the presentation?
Okay. Now, as Sergio has done most of the introduction, I'll briefly just carry on forward. But yeah, as Sergio said, my name is Njabulo Magagula. I'm from South Africa, and I work for the Blue Deal South Africa, a company that's based in the Netherlands, and I'm part of the Young Expert programs in the Netherlands. And yeah, I work with the water resources. Now, my main project is solid waste management in river systems, specifically freshwater river systems. Now, the core of the problem is basically how much solid waste ends up in rivers, and we are not aware of it. So I'd like to spread that awareness of how much solid waste is affecting our river ecosystems and how we can mitigate those problems.
Engineer, sorry for interrupt you. Here the production team is telling me that you can turn off the background of Zoom video, so you can see there's no matter for that. Thank you so much.
Okay.
In between people, you can please activate the subtitles. Production team, can you confirm me if we have the subtitles turned on? And thank you guys for assistance in this conference in the 6th day of our event. Okay, and if you have any question, please just write it and I will try to translate it from our esteemed engineer here present in our conference. And
proceed.
Okay. No, engineer, you can turn on now your camera. You,
Oh, okay.
I told you that you can turn off the
Oh, the
background filter.
background. Okay.
Yeah, if for we can look at you better.
Okay. Let me see.
There is a problem always with Zoom. Yeah, that's much better. Thank you so much,
Okay.
Engineer. And
My
sorry for
pleasure.
the interrupt. Okay, we'll continue.
We continue. Okay. So, as I was saying, finding ways to mitigate the amount of solid waste that ends up in our freshwater ecosystems, and therefore trying to mitigate and improving human health as well as river health. As you know, water is life, and we all depend on water, whether it's directly or indirectly, through agriculture, through machinery, manufacturing, domestic work as well. So it's important that we keep our fresh water clean so that we may proceed. We can proceed with our daily activities in life. Now, the core of the problem is despite environmental laws that safeguard the cleanliness of our streams, lakes, and wetlands, trash, litter, and other solid waste frequently find their way into these surface waters. Anything that is dropped or blown into the watershed can eventually reach into a drainage because surface water congregates in low-lying areas. So basically, all the trash that we throw away or mismanage always ends up in a river. Most of the time ends up in the river system, whether it's blown by wind or surface water runoff during rain. It always ends up in river systems. And we are very unaware of that because of it's not in our public eye. So that's the awareness I wanted to raise. Please go to the next slide. Next slide, please. Oh, thank you. Now, stormwater runoff in urban areas, because most of our urban areas are made of concrete and tar, there's a lot of runoff, as well as in in the instance of where I am, you get cities like Cape Town where it's very windy, so it all blows off into the river system. So stormwater runoff frequently transports trash and litter. The generic words for dry and solid waste is trash and litter. In the metropolitan areas, these materials are occasionally and unlawfully thrown straight into the water body or wetland, or left in the river banks or lake shores in both urban and rural areas. So this problem is mostly from the urban areas because that's where a lot of the trash and litter is produced, and then it gets run off into the river system. But it also happens in rural locations. For example, here in South Africa, where culturally it's just normal for them to throw trash adjacent to a river or into a wetland with the hopes that if there's a flood or rain, it will get washed out into the river, leaving them in a cleaner place, not knowing that it ends up destroying the ecosystem and conversely to the water that they drink and use on the daily. And it also increases economic costs for cleaning, as well as it just ends up in the ocean because most rivers end up in the ocean. So that leads to a lot of solid waste in the oceans. So next slide, please, go forward. Next slide. So these different kinds of trash, they vary, but most of it is just solid waste. But the key word is solid. So some trash objects such as tires, plastic containers, non-organic building debris can act as a habitat for aquatic life, such as in certain situations. Trash, on the other hand, is unattractive and indication of human disrespect for natural environment and the aesthetic as well, just to mention other adverse effects of trash. Now, despite the growing environmental awareness, some people continue to dump unneeded objects like sofas, beds, automobiles, auto parts, bicycles, etc. And they dump it in a way that they're unaware of that it might end up in a river system. That's what I'm saying. So it's just good to be aware of how your trash ends up in the river system. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the impact it has on our rivers and streams may be impacted chemically and biologically by organic waste, such as wood waste, among numerous effects. Prevent the growth of aquatic vegetation, changing how fish and other creatures reproduce, reducing the amount of dissolved oxygen in water, which leads to anaerobic water environments especially for aquatic environment, which means they can't breathe underwater, as well as waste that decomposes in the water. Additionally, some types of waste might leach into dangerous substances. For example, pressure treated lumber, use oil filters, and acidic batteries, which are one of the most toxic, leading to changes in pH, turbidity, or overall just river health just depreciates, and the resource quality just goes from pristine to very low grade. Next slide. Next slide, please.
Excuse me, engineer, there is a 5-second retard from displaying the transition in the slides. So just wait a little more.
Oh, okay, understand. My apologies. So in developing countries like South Africa, we don't have we have the resources, but we don't have the knowledge to build infrastructures like what you see in front of you. Mostly in our cities, that's what my project, part of the Blue Deal South Africa, which is sponsored by the Dutch government. We're trying to establish a river cleaning systems, and as well as, but because the core problem of the whole pollution is from the drainage parts of the cities. So it's always nice to nip it at the bud. So we're working on a project where we're going to attach different nets that allow flow through but catch all the solid waste in the cities, as you see here. And just before we go to the main rivers and capture whatever waste that's there. So in certain developing nations, navigable canals serve as both route for the trade and transit, as well as the location of the floating settlements. Canals frequently have boat docks and floating shanties. These are where untreated sewage, garbage, and trash are stored, and some places, poor communities and tributary watersheds dump their trash in the ground or into little cracks that eventually empty into bigger bodies. So basically, these will be changed occasionally depending on the rainy season. So if obviously after flood or heavy rain, they need to be changed immediately, but they are very efficient and they just help nip the whole, like I said, nip it at the bud, stop the prevention before cure. So stop the problem before it gets worse at the source. So next slide, please. So now another solution that we had was cleaning the rivers as on the like on the physical river, but it was very hazardous as most people couldn't swim. So the risk of people drowning was very high. We'd use boats and nets, but that was not working properly as well. But this is a solution that we got from Craig and Ember. I'm just quoting the solution that this is the solution that we're implementing in South Africa, which is first, it's in 3 stages: the planning, the controls, source control, structure, and structural controls. So the first one is planning controls. Planning controls are aimed to adopt land use policies, which for just to quickly explain in 3 points: preserve existing valuable elements of the stormwater system, such as natural channels, wetlands, riparian, and vegetation, by strictly use of such areas. Number 2, minimize the risk of litter reaching the drainage system by situating litter-producing activities in areas where it is easier and you can contain and control the accumulation of the litter, which is exactly what I was explaining before, using the nets in the urban area drainage places before we go clean the rivers, that we nip it at the bud. Now, going to the source control, that's where we control the source as well. So upgrade the cleaning and the cleansing operations by, for example, better placement of design of litter bins, more frequent collection of litter, monitor the street sweeping. So now we go before the nets. So we monitor the streets to make sure that all litter is picked up occasionally and religiously. And we control the construction activities. We also get into the businesses. So we create a culture where the businesses understand the importance of litter. Like I said, spread awareness, education, so they understand that the litter ends up where the litter ends up, just more of a preventative measure. And lastly, the structural controls, which is the engineering part of it, creating systems like the river capturing river, which is not complete yet, but I'll share with you further. It's a boat that has a net that's designed biologically by engineers and biologists, where it lets through most of the marine life, but it captures all the solid waste. So it litter traps and as well as stormwater treatment. So before the river, at the river edges, it catches all the litter, and then we able to then go dispose of it in a very proper way. So yeah, all in all, in summary, it's to spread awareness before we apply the engineering part of it. Because if you put together awareness and engineering, it creates a preventative and also a very controlled, structural based environment, and that's part of my project. So it involves both communication and technique and social, as well as economic and engineering technical parts. So yes, in summary, that's my project. In summary, it's much longer than this, but because of time constraints, I couldn't get into more detail. But thank you everyone for the time, and I think that's it for now. Open for questions.
Thank you very much, engineer. There is a great project that you are developing in your country for treatment of water. So you can tell us if, okay, people, now you can make your questions. The engineer couldn't make any longer because the time is a little, I don't know, he has short time.
Yes,
So,
maybe
here,
fine.
David is sending you greetings from Piura. Here is a city in Peru. He is
Pura.
yeah.
Thank you very much. I hope to visit there one day.
I hear somebody is telling me that, okay, no. People, please, you can make your questions. Chicos, pueden hacer sus preguntas. You can make your questions and I will try to translate it and better I can. So here Robert says, congrats from Rara City. It's another city here in Peru. Our audience is from Latin America.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Everything is in Spanish, so I can't read. I'm trying to read.
Yes, I will translate it. Don't worry, engineer. Here, Carlos says, in many places in Latin America, we are having the same issues than Africa. It's just a comment. It's not a question. He is saying
Okay, no, I
we have.
understand. It would be nice to implement it in Latin America as well. I mean, if we have the same problems, come up with the same solution. So hope to that.
Ok, chicos, pueden hacer sus consultas, no hay ningún problema, o sus comentarios que quieran hacer para hacerle llegar al ingeniero, yo los voy a traducir. I was telling them that they can make their intervention in Spanish and I will translate it for you. Okay. Okay, there, I think here we are here in the morning, so I think the people is making her things so nearly. So thank you so much, engineer. I think there is no more questions. It's a great project. Okay, here Carlos says if the South African government is promoting your project.
Yes, is that a question?
Yeah.
Yes, yes, they're promoting the project. They're in partnership with the Dutch water authorities. So that's where the funding comes from, and then we present the project, and then we get the funds for that, and then it gets approved, and then we then implement it in stages, though not all of it. They just want to see if it works before that. So it's in stages, in the beginning stages. Then with the progress and more support from the government, it goes further.
That's so great. The government interested in monitoring water. I don't know how to say management. Okay, so that's great to hear that South African government is supporting this kind of project. Here, Goodwin is sending greetings from Apurimac, another city here in Peru. The architect Miguel Alban says, good morning, welcome engineer. We will attentive to your presentation. And Carlos says, thank you so much for the answer. Okay, okay. Thank you so much again, engineer. Here is another question. Cesar Fernandez says, how much is the, okay, let me translate this. Okay, let me see if I can translate this and read it to you. Okay, he's asking how much will be the minimization of the environment impact if that system as the project seeks signs. Okay, if the project can affect bodies of water and emerging contaminants such as microplastics. If the project can avoid the microplastics.
Pardon, he's asking if the project can?
Yes, he's asking if the project can avoid the microplastics. And if how much will be the minimization of the contamination?
Okay, so for now, we're still targeting, because macro, that's why I said solid waste, with my definition on the slides, much bigger waste chunks. So microplastic, we're still not at that level yet, because they're very small. So it needs very specialized nets and it's quite expensive. But in future, we hope to target microplastics. For now, it's macro plastics. And like I said, our nets are designed based on the aquatic freshwater animals from the biggest. So they go through the nets, and we strictly throw back any fish that we catch and any crabs and any freshwater ecosystems that we try our best. And we don't, the nets don't, it's not a trolling net, so it's always on the surface, and then it goes deeper, but it never goes to, it doesn't harm the riverbed. So yeah, that's the answer. So the whole project is designed to be very environmentally friendly. That's the priority.
Okay, thank you so much, engineer, for the answer. So if anyone has another question, this is the time for making it. Thank you so much, Cesar, for your participation.
My pleasure, Sergio. Anytime. I'm sorry I didn't have that much time, but yeah, it was my pleasure. And thank you for everyone that was participating and asking questions. Appreciate it.
Okay, engineers, thank you so much. We are pleasure to have you in this event. So go on and thank you so much again. Goodbye. Thank you. Ok, chicos, por ahí nos están haciendo llegar el enlace para que puedan ustedes registrar su participación en la conferencia del día de hoy. Lamentablemente el ingeniero no ha podido dar su presentación completa, ha tenido un contratiempo, se encuentra de viaje, pues, y es bueno, tiene ahí asuntos pendientes que tratar y no nos va a poder acompañar. Así que hizo esta breve presentación de una pequeña parte de un proyecto en el que él está participando. Igual nuevamente ha mandado sus disculpas por no poder acompañarnos incluso en el horario completo. Entonces, por ahí Cinti nos decía cómo podría ser el planeamiento y el control para lograr con diseños urbanos. Bueno, el ingeniero estaba hablando solamente de evitar contaminación en los ríos para que la fauna, ¿no? La fauna silvestre pueda desarrollarse libremente. Recordar que en... Thank you, está por ahí Javier Ernesto. Recuerden que la fauna es bastante vulnerable en Sudáfrica, entonces el gobierno tiene que implementar proyectos para poder, en este caso, darle pues sostenimiento y el crecimiento adecuado que tienen que tener, ¿no? No es como un país como el nuestro, aquí en Latinoamérica la fauna es abundante y a pesar de todo, pues sigue prosperando, ¿no? A pesar de todo, no sabemos que tenemos varias especies en extinción. Si alguien conoce a alguien que hace tala de árboles, chicos, por favor, pues generar conciencia. Desde Apurímac, estás fino. Ya quisiera, Goodwin, ¿no? Más bien estoy aquí sintiéndome mal. Hace tiempo no he practicado el inglés, he hecho mi mejor esfuerzo, pero no. A ver, por aquí Denis nos dice, lamentablemente con el problema con la basura está en la falta de conciencia. Eso sí, claro, ese es un problema más urbano. Lo que comenta el ingeniero es que, bueno, estas mallas recogen solamente hojas, cosas que están flotando en la superficie, o sea, no agarran todo el cuerpo para que obviamente no capture ningún pez, ningún animal, eso es lo que nos estaba comentando, ¿no? Que es solamente la parte superficial y bueno, ahí puso un ejemplo, ¿no? De cómo esto podría ser aplicado a ambientes urbanos, ¿no? Donde vimos un pequeño canal, pero esto está principalmente pensado para ríos, ríos naturales, así, limnografía tal cual, ¿no?